Day 2, afternoon of the DIFC Forum. We're in the final lap right now. The official title of our debate is Atoms, Wind, Sun, Waves, and Palms, the Business and Politics of Energy Alternatives. And Lee Stein is the founder of Prize Capital.
The financial crisis is going to drive the issue of job creation. In the United States in particular, you're going to see some very significant changes where last year, as an example, Texas brought in 5,000 megawatts of wind, but the turbines came from Germany, the blades came from China, so we basically were importing wind energy. Those kinds of concepts are going to change to put people in the Midwest and in the Rust Belt into new forms of jobs and job creation. The financial crisis will actually act as a catalyst for many of the technology innovations.
Kyle Kochweiser is the vice chairman of Deutsche Bank.
I see here the potential, and that's what brings in, obviously, governments, of combining the fiscal stimulus packages, 3, 4, 5% of GDP in the US, in Europe 1%, with a green recovery. And that is underway. Terrific. Because it focuses on infrastructure that is energy efficient, that makes us more energy secure, that limits carbon emission, is also job creating and a good economic stimulus with a good multiplier with job creation and so on. So there is the opportunity, that's my message, out of this crisis.
What do you think falling oil prices will have? Is this going to be a more negative impact than even the financial crisis?
We'll come to the situation where, look, energy efficiency is a form of supply. Let's think about it that way, and a term I'd like to come back to later is the term negawatt, which is using this technology to become energy efficient so that we get the same quality of performance using less watts. And that becomes, in essence, a major form of supply. But I think our discussion is really missing nature. Okay, we're at a point in time here where the human need for energy the human growth and the human need for energy has collided with nature. To have a discussion about alternate forms of energy and leave out nature, to me, seems like we can talk double bottom line, but let's really call it triple bottom line. We're living in the period of the greatest extinction since the dinosaurs. That's both plant and animal. We're seeing it in the oceans, we're seeing it on land at an unprecedented rate. And it's happening while all of us in this room who have the influence, who have the capital to really do something about it. There are some concepts that have come out of Stanford in particular on natural capital. At what point are we going to add value to that nature around us? And I think to fail to look at the issue of sustainability, it would be a major failure on behalf of the people in this room who are in the best position in the world to solve it.
In future, we will not talk only about energy prices or oil prices, but also carbon prices. Because if the US now joins in serious a cap-and-trade system, which establishes mandatory targets for the developed countries, I believe firmly later on also, say by 2020 for the Chinas and Indias and others of this world, you obviously will have the development clearly initially in a bit of a messy way, regional schemes, hopefully somewhat harmonized, but eventually of a global carbon market. That's at least the vision, where you have a carbon price. And obviously that carbon price will then drive investments and energy efficiency. So I think we have with the breakthrough in the US now, which I'm sure will then be joined, the consensus by Japan, which traditionally is waiting for the US to move first, and India and China now being at least on two parallel tracks towards energy efficiency and carbon reduction, we will have a very different ballgame. And I think a future where you have a carbon price almost like a currency, stock exchanges where you trade carbon. We are already a major carbon emissions trader, Deutsche Bank, around the world, origination projects under the different schemes of carbon certificates all around the world. That's the future. So it's not just the oil price.
I'd also like to come back to the theme of separating supply side and demand side, because energy efficiency is also something that needs that technology transfer. You know, when the energy systems of the world were built, they were built for reliability. They were not built for efficiency. That's because we had smaller populations, we had more abundant energy, and nature was able to absorb the externalities, which it's no longer able to absorb at zero cost. And so when we talk about the climate change issues, we really have to look at the fact that we as a society economically made a decision many years ago that having zero pollution was economically inefficient. And we also drove, so we didn't try to pay that incremental cost to make sure that our environments were pure. We were able to have those externalities absorbed by the masses. I think it's called the tragedy of the commons. And at the same time, we have to look at the standpoint of this fact that we built for reliability and we did not build for efficiency. And now, because of the escalating human population and the escalating need for energy, as those theoretical 2.3 billion people who live on $1 a day start entering into use of more energy, energy efficiency is really the business. And I think we need to focus on that as well as focus on supply side, no matter whether it's going to be from biofuels or wind or solar or more drilling.
Stephen Geiger is the director, bless you, the director of Industries Unit for Masdar Abu Dhabi Future Energy Company.
So despite the difficulties that the global economy is currently in, we shouldn't lose sight of the opportunities that are being presented in renewables particularly. We're pretty excited about what we're doing in Abu Dhabi. We see it as just a start of a much larger movement coming out of this region. Once other oil producers also start to realize that they can get a lot of multiple gains by investing a large flow of the petrodollars back into technology that they can develop and also create new non-hydrocarbon revenue streams, I think you could see a much larger movement coming out of the Gulf region, pairing up with Europe, pairing up with America, pairing up with Asia to advance these industries much faster than they're currently developing.
Joe Anise is the region executive for the Middle East for GE Energy.
I think, diversification of your energy, as a country or as a government, and then as a company is important.
And Lee Stein.
I'm not talking about environmental from the standpoint of sort of a tree-hugging environmentalist. I'm actually talking about it from the standpoint of a capitalist, okay? We're at the point from the science that we're seeing in particular at the Scripps Institute of Oceanography, where I'm a board member. Ocean acidification is the type of issue that we need to be looking at as well, because there is nobody in charge of that issue. It's too big. But what would happen someday if somebody drops a fishing line in the ocean and there's no fish? How does our mood for growth work? How do we start handling our food systems, in the world?
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.